So what I'll do by way of introduction is I have some basic data on sales performance in the information industry, sales projections, average sales cycle, reactions to what's happened in the marketplace, top concerns of sales leadership. So if you guys will put up with it, I wanted to start by just running through some data. And what I have here comes from the quarterly outsell survey. Collingwood just did a survey, renewed discussions with this group, and individual one-on-one conversations. So there's a whole bunch of data sets. And I'd also say, once again, since Lisa, our Chief Revenue Officer at BVR, is on the call, we're going through these discussions internally. So, obviously, like all of you, we're trying to figure out what 2023 should look like, given an inflationary environment, what appears to be increased economic uncertainty. I don't know how it can get any less or more certain at this point, but everybody's saying it's more uncertain. So then after the data, I promised 10, there are actually not only 11, there are 12 specific programmatic responses that sales leaders are making that came from one-on-one interviews. So I'll just run through those. And I guess what I'd asked of all of you, since there's a little more data in this one than there normally is, it's not a discussion, maybe just jump in whenever you want with comments on any of these, and the goal would be to get through this in the usual 15 minutes, and then have some time for talking about individual experiences and what people are doing. If so, hopefully that's okay with everyone. And Cindy, since I tried to drag you into this, if you want to, you're welcome to get in a repartee and interrupt me if you want, even though I take it that you really didn't want to join me on this one. So
I must have missed that email, but we can chat about that later. But yeah, I'm happy to jump in. I'm not shy. I will.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. I'll
no, go ahead. You start.
Yeah. In fact, it's all yours. I actually have to leave. So all my friends out here, here's the beginning of just some of the data dumps between the four sources I mentioned at the top. At the end of the third quarter, which we're just gone through, 51% of the sales managers, this is from Outsell, say they're below plan more than 5% at this point of the year. So I wanted to start with that because there's some comfort there. I kind of trust that number. 29% say they're within plus or minus 2 or 3%, and 15% say they're above forecast at this point. So there's some people have managed to succeed, but the majority have dropped off, and most of that occurred in the second quarter and the beginning of the third quarter, because at the beginning of the year, everybody was reporting they were ahead of budget, like 65%. So there was definitely a summer drop off for many of these event producers and information companies. There's still some optimism though. So 27%, only 27%, about half of the people who are below plan project that they'll end below plan. Salespeople are always optimistic. 40% think they'll be within the plus or minus 1 or 2%. So we don't have much more time to go, but everybody thinks they're going to catch up somehow. And still about the same 15% think they're above plan, but 0% are in the outsell survey, 0%. These are some bigger private equity funded companies in this, think they're going to be up above plan by more than 10%. Not a single respondent out of about 120 thought they were going to be more than 10% above plan. So what are the reasons for these? Number one reason cited, and I know a lot of the people on this call, because I've spoken to a lot of you, are experiencing the same thing, but number one reason cited was changes in average sales cycle, like slowdown. And the theme in all of this data is that the top of the funnel, the lead generation part, most people think that's still working, but they're not able, their indecision comes in later in the process. So where off-plan performance is being recorded, it's later in the sales cycle. Some encouragement there to all of you who are struggling with this. So both Collingwood and Outsell report that like end of first quarter 2021, the end of the first year of COVID, the average sales cycle was 115 days on bigger account sales. That dropped at the beginning of the year. There was a lot more optimism. It dropped to 85 days, so a significant improvement. But now it's trended back up to in second and third quarter, it was at 99 days as an average sales cycle for everybody who responded. So it's not as bad as it was, but there's definitely a slowing there. And again, if anyone has any thoughts on any of these, but as I said, like some of the comments, like one comment somebody said about this was the C-suite is stalling, which is causing all of the non-C-suite buyers to delay or cancel purchases. I think that's kind of a summary, like there's hesitancy from the top due to uncertainty, and it's affecting all of our markets. The other comment and trend is highlighted is that sales to existing customers are actually staying steady, but the win backs of customers, sales and customers, this by way of empathy for all of you. A couple of other things. One encouraging thing, hiring has been such a problem for so many people, but partially what's happened is most people are slowing down. Right now, this is in the last 2 weeks, somewhere, 55% are either at an only replace or same pace as normal hiring. So that bulge we saw at the beginning of the year appears to be slowing down in our industry. 30% are saying, are still saying there's no hires, or they're actually retrenching or doing layoffs. So there's still a significant amount there. That I'd say that's good news, because I think it indicates that the supply of good salespeople is going to start to loosen up for all of us. And that's been such a battle the last year and a half for many people I know. Couple other things. Nobody is citing, very few people are citing hiring problems anymore as a major blockage. Nobody is, it appears that the conversations about the decision of working at home and sales productivity have sort of run their course. Nobody's complaining about that anymore. and almost nobody complained about, in any of these surveys, complained about supply chain problems in our industry, in our professions. So some of the COVID problems appear to be, the decisions have been made, people have moved on, if that makes sense, if that's helpful at all. However, the concerns that are increasing are the number one in the Collingwood survey was forecast accuracy. Like people are having, like they're getting, kind of random results that don't match plan. So that came up. And then, as I mentioned, number two was customer uncertainty and lack of decision-making on the customer end. So lots of proposals that are suddenly getting dead air. If any of you are having that experience, hopefully that makes you feel better. You're not alone. Here are the top 9 or top 8 reactions to this market from the survey data. One, changing the business plan to get more from current customers. That was the top reaction, 65%. Launching new products or brands or whatever, 53% are doing that as a way to replace lost revenue. 3, also 53% was new, adding sort of more, I guess we used to call telemarketing, but outbound programs, somewhere near the front of the funnel. So that's an addition. Number 4 was more frequent sales dashboard monitoring. Like people are talking about, like, daily check-ins on dashboard trends so they can respond more quickly rather than weekly or monthly, logically enough. Number 5 at 47% was targeting going into new secondary markets, again, trying to replace lost revenue. Number 5 was adding specialized sales staff to try to pick off niches around the core market. Number 7 was changing the sales process, which that one I'm not quite, that's a kind of a big basket. I'm not quite sure. And the last one was number 17. It was 17%, but earlier in the year it was only 6%. Is that some people had started discounting, but that's like the last response. So sounds like and I know at DVR we're holding our prices and doing price increases. Lisa just did a bunch of work on the plan for 2023. So so it does feel like people are holding on, I think, as much as possible. So last data dump before I go into the list of kind of specific responses that people suggested. Crystal ball forecast for 2023, pessimistic, 47% are anticipating a slowdown in their business. So, and at the beginning of 2022, that number was 11% in the outsell survey. So dramatic increase in pessimism there. There is some hope to make that up by increasing average deal size. That's sort of the main strategy where people are hoping to catch up ground for a weak economy. And the one other bit of good news, I guess, in there is that a very low percentage anticipate the top of the funnel problems, loss of leads. So it sounds like they're not worried there. They're worried much later in the sales cycle. I should say, like, a lot of this data comes from sort of private equity funded people. So they're going to be more bullish than I think most renewed members. But among, outsells 25 million and smaller, which is almost all of us, the average prediction is still 18% sales growth for 2023. Average price increase forecast is 8.4%. At BVR, we're trying to get to 7, so we're a little bit lower. And sales salary increase, the average projection is just under 7%, partially in an effort realizing that smaller companies are doing better at attracting remote salespeople now. So that's the data dump part of what I have. I hope some of that is just sort of helpful as background. And if any, I know there's some comments in the chat. Does anybody want to just jump in there before I run through the second part? Any
Hey, David.
Comments, or I'll run through my list.
Yep. David, this is Stephanie. I don't know if you can hear me very well because I'm in the car, but
yep.
I was going to comment on, I thought what you mentioned about like the difficulty of getting the C-suite buy-in. We're seeing a lot of that in the new market that we entered, and in urgent care just earlier this year, where we'll have the medical director that's like, yes, I want your product ready to go. And then they take it to the CEO or CFO and they're like, well, why do we need this? When do we need to spend more money? Like, we've already got other resources. But what we're finding to be helpful, and I'm sure others have tried this as well or do this, but is we're working more closely with the person that said yes, our decision maker, to get them to tell us how to sell it to the C-suite, and then revising the presentation accordingly. So like we'll kind of say, okay, well, we're going to have like a working session. We'll show you the document and we actually edit it with them and like kind of go through it. And we ask them like, well, what are you hearing from the CEO, CFO? What do you expect their pushback's going to be? And then we'll revise it to speak more directly to that. And that's helped us close some that were struggling. So just wanted to throw that out there. It's definitely been a challenge.
Yeah. And Stephanie, your comment in the comment field to that point, including the very frustrating comment, I mean, it's just got to be tough on frontline salespeople to have a typical sales pattern where you have 80% likelihood of close, and then suddenly nothing's closing. So the sales management challenges of this, I think, are something we'd all want to pay attention to. I'll just mention Robin and Helen, obviously both of you can chime in, but if looking at the comments, Robbins commented that frogs will soon be falling from the sky in the UK, which seems pretty likely to me within the next week. But the inflationary trends in the UK are far worse than they are in North America right now, and so that's definitely, the UK is definitely, I think, has even more challenges here. And Helen's comment, obviously there's some good suggestions there. So if there aren't any comments, I think I can just run through this last list of pragmatic sales success ideas that came out of the interviews and the survey data, and then look. With these comments, I think we can open it up because we're all trying to solve the same problem here. Number one, quote, it's become increasingly impossible to have a salesperson who sells all products to all customers. Each month we're niching our sales department more and more, just like our content. That's a pretty good quote. So again, sales structure, do we need to look at our territories again right now to respond to a more uncertain economy. So that's number one. Number two, the quote was, "It takes a community." And this quote was, they found that one of the problems was that there wasn't the contact between customer research, product management, customer service and support, sales. The links there were breaking down due to remote, all the things we all know about, and that was damaging the sales process, particularly the end of the sales process. So in response to what Stephanie just said, one response is like, how do we get more touch points? How do we get 15 people involved in this process rather than just a lead salesperson? And again, please, any throw your hand up if you want to jump in on any of these. Number three, a number of people reported that they have added sales staff selling English language products, but the sales staff are working in non-English languages. And the quote was, by doing this, we've opened doors that we've never been able to open before, and it's the reason we've been successful this year. One person said. So I don't know if that's applicable for any of you, but it certainly a creative. Number four, is sales a trusted advisor for your customer? If you can't answer yes to that, stop now and redesign your structure so they are. The pretty strong statement. I don't know about that, but with all the content marketing we've done, obviously the goal there is to position our people as experts in the field. And there are a number of strategies to increase that. I think of, I don't know if many of you on this call listened to the On the Offense I did with Suzanne Verity, who'd use customer rankings and lead tables as a way to make their salespeople experts in the business that they were working in. So their salespeople were often quoted on like top firms and things like that. So different strategies to help sales get there. Number five, this is the only one, accelerating nimble review of the product mix and positioning. So some attempt to try to accelerate, and I think the essence there is if you can have a new bell and whistle on all your products every month or every quarter, so more pragmatic planning about product releases and things like that. So salespeople have something exciting to talk about. Number six, quite a number of people have added empathetic listening training, which makes sense. Again, you're trying to change the sales model to trusted colleague rather than outbound sales. So that's definitely another step in that direction. Number seven, if you're struggling for talent, look upstream. They've slowed down. Several people have commented that smaller companies are doing better now, getting people from the Googles and Amazons and the fancy brands of the world, simply because you can tell a story that's saying, wow, we're doing something revolutionary here. We're doing something interesting here. This isn't business as usual. So several people are saying they're winning talent from the big companies, whereas the last decade we've been losing talent in that direction. So maybe that's an optimistic thing. Number eight, governance around price negotiations. Many of us do not have clear policies that allow us to move pricing forward year to year. When I read that one, I thought of discussions in-house at BBR with Lisa and Lucretia, like, okay, how do we get back to a strategy after, I know a lot of us on this call sort of sat tight on pricing in 21, so I think moving from ad hoc price adjustments to a pricing policy is definitely one way to respond. Number 9. Number 9 is a little bit like the kind of trusted advisor idea, but another, everyone loves to be disruptive. Salespeople love it in particular. It's easy for them if they can fit it's new into every sales message. So that one I think is maybe a little bit repetitive, but definitely I think positioning the sales message to say, listen, we're changing the game, that plays well in the marketplace right now. This is your opportunity to get in at a moment of change. And I think that affects product strategy too. So like the nimble product strategy, and how do you take that approach? Number 10 is interesting, and let's see, Dan Fink's not on this call, but I've had interesting conversations with Dan about this message, but it also came up in a lot of the data I was looking at. All of us focus on how many more touch points we can get with our customers. But in this environment where, say, the C-suite is hesitant or petrified, a lot of people said you have to make increasing touch points sort of a strategic and programmatic effort. It can't be like, let's just have other people call. So a lot more stuff on top 20 customers. What's the plan for number 1? What's the plan for number 2? Angela's going to call this person, Ed's going to call this person, Bob's going to call this person, that. So systematizing your touch point management with key accounts to secure those accounts is definitely a strategy. That's number 10. Number 11 is sensitivity to inflation and the possibility of recession. Great quote. For many years, we've lived off multi-year deals as a way to manage price increases and locking in retention. But now with inflation, we may be shooting ourselves in the foot. Make sure you're very conscious that long-term sales contracts are aligned with the strategic growth you want from each of your key accounts. Just a nice quote. So if you've been doing 2-year deals, that kind of thing, step back for a second and make sure it still makes sense. That's particularly true in the UK, where, in Europe, where higher inflation rates are intended. And number 12, targeted discounting for non-North American customers. So where there is discounting and there isn't much, the strength of the American dollar is driving it into the other market segments a little bit more. So that was cited as a very common response. So I'll end that list by apologizing. Obviously this is normally a super energetic dialogue that many of you participated in, but I hope, I just think there's so much there about what people are trying to do on the sales side of their business that I hope you don't mind a little bit of the data dump there, and I'd open it up to any discussion for the last part about what you're all doing individually, if it aligns, and if things aren't working. And I'll take the positive regard. Thank you. Thank you, Jen, Stephanie, and Angela.
David, Paul's hand is up, and also Robin has some comments on the HBR study that he mentioned that I think is that he's mentioned in the chat that are worth talking about.
Sure.
But,
so let's go, Paul. What? Go ahead, and then we'll go to Robin.
Yeah, in anything that you've read, have you seen a trend of more and more people influencing a decision in an organizational purchase? Because one of the things that, you know, when the economy or things are uncertain, you know, CEOs want to cover their rear ends across many people in the organization who all said, yeah, let's make that purchase.
Yeah.
And the problem that I always find is that it's the people that the salesperson can't get to that are often the ones throwing the wrench into the works.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What have you seen in the research in that area?
Maybe other people want to respond. I mean, I would say that of all the stuff that I just reported on, definitely yes, much broader number of decision makers. Some of them you cannot get to anymore because they're sort of hidden behind remote screens. But that there's very much a sense. I think you just used, you know, cover your ass or whatever. I'm sorry if I downgraded your beautiful articulate language, Paul, but that it, in many cases, it's literally the CEO saying, don't travel, don't talk to anyone, don't make any decisions, you know. So a lot of people are reporting that it's very top-down driven, and it's sort of poisoned everybody else. Other people want to, that's what I take out of what I've heard.
Yeah, I would mention too, we're finding more there's different people are now in charge of different budgets. So whereas maybe it used to be the marketing director that had the full budget for the event, now salespeople in some cases are getting lead gen budgets that are separate, and digital media people are getting their own budgets, and then headquarters are getting their own. So it's not always that it's several people within one group. Sometimes you can just go to a whole different group or a whole different like title than in the past, which is helpful.
How do you try to work around that? Because that, you know, that problem, which is a specific definition of what Paul just raised, like that's a nasty sales problem.
Yeah, and I think part of it is we go to a lot of competitive shows. Like we try to be where people are in person, because you're right. I think one of your things was the remote super hard. Now it is. I mean, it's a lot easier to not answer an email or the phone or jump on a Zoom call. So we try to set up the meetings in person. And then we'll find out who those people are, right? So sometimes it might be the marketer's not there, but salespeople are, or vice versa. And we just ask a million questions and try to get to the right people.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely an effort, and you have to kind of, like you said, I think your top 20 in those cases, the more people, the more touch points you have, it makes it a lot easier. And sometimes, you know, we can get the high level people coming to the events and they're willing to sit down with us, which is great. So.
Yep. Anyone else on that problem? And I mean, Janet, you guys are always so good at this, but like what you're describing is really taking a strategic approach to a very specific expanding problem in the marketplace. So, I mean, I think that's what we all have to do. And Angela, did you want to jump in on this?
Yeah, kind of to Paul's point. So, you know, from a strategic lens, we've tried to partner with other organizations that we can provide them leads to get their products into. And we've got a couple tech firms that have new software at it's a higher price point, but it's to help with certain kinds of audits that healthcare providers are having. And so it's good ROI. I mean, we can track it, and we're having exactly what Paul is talking about, where we've got opportunities in the works where the facility has identified that this software will save them, you know, millions of dollars. But at their high level, their C-suite they're not moving on it. I mean, it's the whole way along the sales process. They're interested, they know they need it, we've proven it. So what we've tried, and we haven't got any deals closed yet, but what we've been trying to do is bring in the strategic approach of other people, where I'm coming on the call, we're having our CEO come on the call. So we're trying to bring in other touch points to, just nurture that client, to make them feel more comfortable, but they still aren't comfortable. So we definitely are experiencing that at our higher level sales.
Yeah, sorry. John, and I'm glad to see you've been allowed back inside for the first time in a month or 6 weeks or however long it's been.
I just came inside to get a drink and I raised my hand, my mistake. The holy grail is always enterprise license. And the challenge to the holy grail increasingly is, as has been said, every department needs to be kind of brought in. It's going to be allocated out. Big cost to the company, it'll be allocated out. And it becomes even worse because those departments then will go to individual users and say, each of you is going to have to take a share of this. Now, so you want to use it, you see us, we'll put you down, but your own individual budget is going to be hit by some proportionate amount of money from the whole. And that is just the devil to break. And I'm seeing that it's an excuse in tough times. It's a barrier in large time. When good times are here, people will be a bit more optimistic and take the chance. But boy, these days, that's just the immediate line of defense is, well, we're going to have to allocate this out. You're going to have to go to 15 different departments and get them to buy in. Are you telling us you really don't want to do this, or is that realistic? Are you the kind of person, Mr. Procurement, that you can actually orchestrate this, or do we have to do it ourselves? And the answer to that says a lot about whether they're serious in buying or not. And we don't have a great answer to this other than just put your head down and work hard at it. But I'd be desperately interested in anybody who has had success in managing these things.
It almost feels like the response is starting to be one like customer by customer, account by account, and there's probably a trend in there where if a key account person used to be able to handle 30 accounts, let's say, I don't know, maybe now the right number is 15. Which would drive sales costs up, but might be the path to success.
Well, I think
John, go ahead.
I think you're right, and so you get fewer accounts handled by good senior managers, and the small accounts where the growth typically comes from, they don't get enough treatment and enough help. They're handled by people who are working hard but not as skilled at nurturing, perhaps. So, or they're not being observed carefully at all. So it's a doubt.
I didn't see a single instance in any of the stuff that I just sort of shared with you where somebody said their plan was to grow off the front of the funnel, like we're going to enhance our lead gen and grow 40% next year. That like 0% said that. It's which is notable and supports exactly what all of you are saying. Maybe Paul, one last comment, and then we'll go to Robin's point.
All I was going to say is really, it starts making the case of why you've got to start influencing the influencers, right? You got to start to develop a marketing and promotional campaign around the individuals who influence those decisions. Because again, if you're not talking to them, what John just talked about, especially with enterprise-wide subscriptions, if you're not getting to all those departments and letting them know what they're losing by not having your information, you're never going to get to buy-in. So
the same that Jen said about the part of the budget is moved to a department you've never even spoken to before. Like you're never going to get that sale closed without changing your strategy. And I think maybe if there's a lesson in all of that, Paul, that what you just said, that's like, I think, kind of at the center of it with I'm sure there's a lot more on this, but Robin, do you want to jump in your thoughts because that's a good point too. All yours, Robin.
Sure. So that HBR article that I shared is well worth the read, and it's it's very thought-provoking and it's quite challenging because its premise is essentially saying traditional sales and marketing teams don't work, which I suspect most of us on this call have suspected in some shape or form for some time. And I think essentially going back to the point that was made earlier about enterprise sales, so very big ticket items, people are finding those very hard to sell in the current climate.
Yeah.
So I think where you have a whole internal network of decision makers who are inputting into that final decision and being able to influence them, is really tough, and you're very reliant on your internal advocate to do the hard work for you. So I think that's prompting a lot of commercial teams trying to sell enterprise products to just sort of adjust their tactics a little bit. So I think the point about being the trusted advisor is a good one, in the sense that it's encouraging people to build long-term relationships, to kind of show the value as much as sell and speak to the value. So I think people require, a little more evidence, a little more, they want to taste and experience what the service involves before they pay for it. Yeah. So I just think that there's a number of really interesting points that are made in there. And it's had me thinking for the best part of 6 months of what the right response is. One tiny thing just to finish is that something that I heard this last week, which I thought was really smart, was where you are dealing with a budget holder who's making a decision on behalf of their department or team with lots of stakeholders, is to really dial up the personal value for the budget holder or decision maker and make sure that they personally get something very valuable through your service, which I think is really smart.
I think that it's brilliant. And when you hear about successes in renewed discussions among this group of friends, a lot of the successes are because of something right along the lines of what you just said, Robin. There's some adjustment with a product champion, there's some expansion of the product champion status within an organization. Something's adjusted in that relationship that strengthened it. So there's more value add somewhere in there. Paul?
Yeah, no, there are two things that phrases that have been used here. One is trusted advisor. The other one is listening, right? And, one of the challenges with being a trusted advisor is, while you may be knowledgeable in your industry, knowledgeable about your customer, knowledgeable about your own products, if you don't listen to your customers, you're never going to be trusted. And, I don't know how many of you train your salespeople on listening skills. When I used to train salespeople, it was a big portion of the training that I did. And I would always say to them, if you can master this, not only will your sales grow, but your personal relationships will improve.
Yeah.
Right.
You'll like the conversations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Listening is a skill, because we're all in a situation where we hear a word or the customer say something and then our brain starts to churn about how we want to respond, which stops us from listening to the rest of what the customer said. And it's training your salespeople to overcome that, is going to help them achieve trusted advisor status.
Yeah. I'm a little bit disappointed, Paul, that you've been listening to my personal family dinner time discussions. Obviously, you understand the problem there. Not mine, other people. But
and every family, trust me, every family.
I know. I happen to be the world's greatest listener on the planet, and if you don't believe me, I don't want to hear about it. That's my sales strategy. So anything, Robin, I agree completely. Really good points on that. Any other thought? Oh, all yours, William.
Maybe I can offer two more tactical comments. So one is we're spending more time, and I think doing a better job of asking probing questions. For example, is it possible for your team to improve their skills, right? Which of course, no one would say no to. In a more refined fashion, we're saying, is this not a great opportunity as things slow down to try and enhance the productivity performance of your team, given we're a knowledge business, and is this market condition actually optimal? So I'm not sure if we've got perfect language, but we're certainly spending more time and attention on eliciting good, desirable behavior, some of the questions. So the second comment I'll offer is, we just hired a new head of sales, and he's using video. So he's recording a personal video, 2 minutes in length, before sales meetings. And the video says, I've looked at your website, and it shows him on their website, and I understand your business. And when we talk at 2 this afternoon, I want to talk to you about what we do at our institute. And so you go into the call, and the person knows you've done your homework. They're kind of like, wait, you recorded a custom video before a sales call? They take it a little more seriously. And it gets a little bit of the information shared in the way, so that the conversation when we have our 15-minute sales Zoom is much more about problems and pain. And in fact, if I could send you, I could put in the chat a link to this guy's video if anyone finds that tactic interesting, but it's certainly been catching people's attention.
Yep. Yeah, those are great. Well, maybe we're right at the end of our time, which is perfect. So I'll end where I always do, which is a reminder that we're all tied together through Renewed. So these discussions keep going forever, and which I personally appreciate. So that's one comment. Two, William, maybe you can send one of the videos around, so we can, because I'm sure those are impactful. So that's great. And as a final thing, just on this topic, again, we have a very small sales team that reports to Lisa, but out of that, we've had people who are good enough listeners, so they're creating opportunities that we never even would have thought of a couple of years ago. So that the kind of the topic we've been talking about here, I think I've watched it in play through Lisa's work. And I'm still on the board of CCC, which is now a $500 million company. I don't know how many of you know that, but Donna Pulio, who's the chief revenue officer there, is like an advocate for everything you said today. And their salespeople are speaking. They have 3 people at the Frankfurt Book Fair right now who are speaking, and those are people from Donna's department, salespeople speaking at conferences. So, like, as I've been really impressed by who just commented on brand helping is the new selling, what Robin put in and what Helen just put in. If you haven't looked at those 2 comments, I think more of us are just getting better and better at that kind of expertise, and we need to continue. Helen, I think marketing needs to focus more on building brand awareness, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's becoming more and more important. Well, those of you who said you appreciated the data, I was a little insecure about this one because it's different format than the fun discussions we've been having. We'll probably switch back to that next month. So I would just say, thanks to all of you for being colleagues as we all get smarter, better, more talented. we've got the leadership council, or the retreat coming up in February. Hopefully we'll see a bunch of you there. And Ed and Stephanie, for all your work keeping Renewed going. I'll close out with thanks to all of you. So have a great month, and I'm sure 100% of us will be above sales forecast by the end of the year, guaranteed.
Thanks for that encouragement, David.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great to see you all. Talk soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.